Okay. I thought I'd get into a little bit of reaction videos with KTR. Kitchen Table Research. You can see her. That's Sully. That's her channel. You can see her. I'm doing this under Title 17 Fair Use, of which there will be a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. First thing she'll do when I react to her video, and I haven't even listened to all of it, I listened to some of it, is report me. Which is not going to do any good because I can counter a claim. But this is what she'll do, is she'll report me because they don't want this stuff that they put out on their channel. It's only for supporters. It's not for the truth. It's not for Devin and Damon. It's not for the facts in the case. It's for supporters. So if I do a reaction on it, she's going to become offended that I did a reaction on it, and she'll report it. It's a thing that Darlie supporters have been doing to me for years, which I always win. They should tell them to stop reporting me. Unless I do something wrong. But no, reacting to somebody's video that shouldn't be. I'm telling. Doesn't work with me. Well, let's hear it.
If he thought Darlie truly needed help, he would have gotten it for her. A lot of people say that Darlie attempted suicide, but from the evidence, we're going to call it an ideation and not.
Nobody said, she never really attempted suicide, but according to the facts of the case, she did have the pills out. She did have them out of a wrapper, and they wouldn't have found that if it wasn't for the dog Domain, who dug them up from under the bed where she threw them. She told Darren she needed him to come home because these two kids were just too much for her. Even though he's trying to run a computer business by himself, because she's at home. You need to stop doing what you're doing, even though that you make enough money for me to afford, as Kitchen Table Research says, you make enough money for me to be able to afford to buy trips for my friends, cover the tab for my friends, go on vacations with them, pay their mortgage for them. Even though you make enough money to do that, I need you to come home and help me take care of these kids. I'll spend your money later. Does that make any sense?
Attempt. She had contemplated and wrote about her feelings and expressed them to Darren, but she never took actual steps to attempt. She had thought about taking.
She actually did take steps because she had it out and she was writing a book. And mind you, this is just 3 weeks before the murders.
Over-the-counter sleeping pills, but she never actually did, and she called her husband immediately.
She called him immediately to tell him to come home. She didn't call him and say, I'm going to kill myself. She called him and told him to come home. Leave that business that you built for me and you in the apartments, putting together little computer parts to what you have now. We need you to leave that. Don't worry about any of that, because it's all about me. And I need some help with these kids. I've got a maid. I know I've got the little girl across the street that helps me with the kids, but I need you to come home and help me with these kids. And his dumb ass did it. You know what I told my wife when she said that? I said, okay, I'll come home and help you with the kids, but we'll drop you off at my work and you handle all that.
This is what a psychologist, who will later testify on Darlie's behalf, describes as a cry for help to Darren.
She could call it a cry for help. It was literally a cry for help. She did not tell Darren, I think I'm going to kill myself. He saw it in her diary. He saw the dog drag the pills out from under. Then she told him how she was feeling. She didn't call him and say, oh, Darren, I feel so bad. I need some help. I'm about to end myself. She called Darren and said, you need to come home and help me with these kids. She's telling Darren that she needs him to come home and help him with the kids that she's got with him. I wonder how she acted when all the kids came over for the Nintendo house parties that they threw all the time, right?
Also around this time, Darlie and Darren had withdrawn several loans for the Jag, the boat, the spa, and...
Didn't draw a loan for the Jag. He paid cash for the Jag. He paid $10,000 cash for it, and he bragged about it.
$10,000. Shortly before the crime, Darren was denied a loan in the amount of $5,000 to give Darlie a trip to Mexico.
It wasn't shortly before the crime. It was a couple of days before the crime.
Ago. I don't know about you guys, but I don't spend $5,000 on a trip, so I don't know why he wanted that much.
Well, and I'm just curious.
The reason that one of the things that he wanted that money for was the trip, but he also wanted about $2,500 of that money to buy Dana a truck, help her buy a truck.
Mom, at this time, is it common to take out loans? Like, is it kind of how we use credit cards today? Because who would approve a loan for $5,000 for a vacation?
I don't.
Yeah, you can get a loan for whatever you want as long as you pay it back. You can put a loan down and say you want to buy $5,000 worth of baby diapers. They'll approve it as long as you have the collateral and the funding to pay it back in a timely manner. They'll make their interest.
I don't think so. You know, I was well taught by my father not to spend money that I don't have. And so I used to keep...
So why would you spend $16,000 on fucking drapes when you can't fix your car? And fix your Jaguar.
a journal of everything that I charged to my credit card because I was trying to build a credit record. And so I think because their business was up and down, they would use these loans to go from a low back to a high, pay the loan back, life would be good, then it'd drop again, they'd get another loan.
So it's kind of like using a credit card.
Up and down seesaw thing.
But yeah, it's like using a credit card, but they're having to go in and speak to a loan officer every time. Like that's, I don't know, that's, again, like you said, I was taught to not spend money I don't have, so.
Well, you've told people, and I have this in your own words, in your own writing, from your your selfie, that the glasses that you wear cost you $20,000. That's what you told people. $20,000 for a pair of glasses.
I've seen your credit card bill, and I don't believe that.
Burn!
So during the 2 months before the crime, someone is calling the Routiers at home. Darlie would answer, speaking into silence on the other end until she...
Well, see, this is just speculation. This is just something that Darlie's saying. There's actually no proof of this, that somebody was calling her house, hanging up. No. She did get into it with somebody who wanted Darren to get his Jaguar and do something with it. It's in his way. Pay it. So why they're paying other people's mortgages and dinners and all that and trips and shit like that. Darren's not able to fix his car because she's spending all this other money everywhere else, right?
Finally hung up. This happened a lot.
They're saying this happened a lot. There is absolutely no evidence of that. We heard of it once.
While unusual, Darlie assumed it was neighborhood kids playing pranks. But considering what happens in June, this sends a shiver down my spine.
That sends a shiver down your spine that she had a few hang-up calls, right? That you claim she had a few hang-up calls. But does it send a shiver down your spine that she says she don't want her kids to look at her and see a miserable person every time they look at her? Forgive me for what I'm about to do. That's not shocking to you? A few hang-up calls are? That there's no evidence of. There's absolutely no evidence of it. The defense didn't bring up phone records. There was no police report made on these hang-up calls, nothing.
In the weeks leading up to the crime, neighbors and family friends had noticed an unfamiliar black car in the neighborhood.
Now they're saying neighbors and family friends. Now, see, they want to make it sound like a whole bunch of people that saw this. All right? Karen Neal claims that she saw a car sitting by her mailbox, and he appeared to be looking over at Darlie's house, which he may have been taking pictures, with his phone of the fountain or whatever, because people would slow down. That fountain that they had in their front yard was $6,000. It was beautiful. And they put it there because, and it's right on the corner. They put it there because they want people to say, hey, look at us. Look at me. You know, we're there, which is fine. It's fine for them to do that. No problem with them spending their money. But what you have to realize is that as people go around the bend there on Eagle Drive, and that fountain was up, it's only natural for them to slow down and look at it. Maybe even take pictures of it. It was pretty rare in that neighborhood. But Karen Neal said she saw a person that was sitting near her mailbox, and he appeared to be looking at Darlie's. She said she went out, and the person drove away. She said quickly. Okay, that's what she said. Karen Neal is also the person that Darlie allegedly paid their mortgage, took domain. So we could flip the script and say, well, Darlie paid her, so she'll say anything she wants Darlie to say, right? But they couldn't tell the make of the car, and then she say neighbors and friends. The other one, now the other time is Beja was leaving with her mother. She saw the car, a black car, and then they saw it go into the alley, the back behind the house, and then turn around back out of the alley and go the different direction. They claimed that there was a black man in there. But I know that when I was there, and I never even gave this much thought, but when I was there, at first we parked out front of the house, over in that cul-de-sac area, actually, more in front of Nelda Watts' house, to go in. And then I after the realtor left, that's when I went and did the test in the back alley with the sock on the top of the car, see where it'd fall. But when I finally came around to get a good look at the house the last time that we were getting ready to leave that area, I came from around that back alley, past Linda Vista, went around to the corner of the house, got a good look at it, and I went in the alley and turned around and backed out. So I can get quicker. It's quicker to get out of Linda Vista that way.
Family friend and neighbor both state the black car looked to be surveilling the Routier house about a week prior to the crime.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do is first thing in the morning. You know, you're planning this killing. That's what you're doing. You're planning on going here and killing some people. So the best thing to do to get everything set up is to park in front of the neighbor's house in broad daylight and surveil the house. That's what I would do. That's probably the best way to handle that, right? Just let everybody in there. Yeah, right. Makes no sense. They keep saying that there's this person and there's this stalker, right? But what you fail to realize is whoever went into that house, if someone went into that house, right? They knew that house. And who else knows the house? Darlie and them know it really well. You can't get through a garage full of shit in the dark.
The driver was looking into the garage. After seeing this car once again the day before the crime in an alleyway next to the Routier garage where the children played, but there's no record of police responding to this information.
Okay, so when the person that Bejas and Helena saw pulled into that back alley, they said they appeared to be looking in the garage. Well, the garage may have been open and they were just looking the back out, to be honest with you. So the police didn't respond to that? Rowlett, how can I help you? Yes, there's somebody that they pulled their car in my back alley and they turned around and left. I need you to come out and check that out. Okay, we'll be right there.
Darlie shrugged this off like the phone calls, but a week later, 2 Routiers will be dead.
Alright, so I'm going to get into the day of the crime. Most of this comes from testimony from within the family. At this point, we have Darlie and Darren. They live in their house in Rowlett. They have 3 boys. Her sister and one of her friends, they're kind of on the in and outs, work at their company. And so Darlie, the boys are out of school, and so Darlie is at home with the boys.
See, one of the things that the old-time supporters have taught solely is that there was some problem between Beja and Darlie, when there absolutely wasn't one. They keep saying, because Beja got up and testified against her. The state wanted her as a witness, so she got up and testified against Darlie. So, Beja is a drug addict, got mental health problems, blah, 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 blah. She just wasn't she was a really shady person, according to supporters. And up at the day of the silly string party, I could just see Darlie walking up to her and going, you know, I know that you've been in and out of mental illness places, and I know that you have a huge drug problem, and I know that you're really jealous of me. But can you watch my son Drake while I spray silly string on the bodies, on the graves of my other 2 kids? Thanks. If they had some kind of falling out, there was no evidence of it on the day of the silly string party. They have to say that, well, they were on the outs. Beja was jealous of Darlie, you know, blah, blah, blah. They have to character assassinate her because her testimony was damning. Damning. I got more information on this case from Beja than we see anywhere else. Because she was there. She knew something was going to happen. She said they had been fighting all week long. Her and Darlie. Him and Darren and Darlie.
Boys, I think for the next few weeks. The day of the crime, Darren's car is in the shop. He takes Darlie's Pathfinder to work.
He had been driving Darlie's Pathfinder to work. That's one of the things that pissed her off, that lit her fuse. That she couldn't get out. She couldn't spend his money. That she needed him to come home to watch the kids because she just can't. It's just too much for her. Too much for her. That in itself is very weird to me. Let my wife or any female that I'm with tell me that I need to stop working to try and provide for my family, to come home and do what is basically her job if she's going to be home. If you're going to be home and not have a career of your own, you probably would want to, as a wife, take care of the kids in the house. You would want to. You wouldn't want your husband to have to pay a maid. You wouldn't want your husband to have to come home and watch the kids while his business he needs to do things. Darlie didn't want to take care of her house. That's why she hired maids. And don't think that Helena and Beja were their first housekeepers. She had housekeepers for 2 fucking years before these murders. Laziness, not disinterest, not lack of motivation. Why would Rebecca and Renee Stanley have to help her babysit the kids when she's home?
However, Barbara Jovell will also drop her mother off, Helena, who was helping Darlie do housework that morning, and then Barbara would go on to work. Helena, who will testify to, well, a lot, is going to be the colloquial Karen in this story. She's from Poland and needs a translator at trial, and I think either she truly does not like Darlie, or...
Well, see, the thing of it is, she didn't need a translator. The court needed a translator because she speaks Polish. And they're going to try and say it. Helena was bad for them too, watch.
Or the translation is just not coming through correctly. Darlie would pay Helena for 3 days' work around the house. And this is the first time they've made this arrangement. Although they had spent some time together in the past because Helena is Darlie's good friend's mother. So
Darlie's good friend.
Helena, who we're going to take with a grain of salt, will testify that while Darlie was holding...
Of course you'll take her with a grain of salt because she speaks the truth. You take everybody with a grain of salt. Everybody had something against Darlie. Everybody's lying but Darlie.
8-month-old Drake, his blankets had become wrapped around his face and that he wasn't breathing. So I know in some countries they don't swaddle. Also, when I read the babysitter's testimony, she said that the baby liked having his blankies up around his face. And at this time, he's really kind of past the major SIDS 1 to 6 month period. This is her third child. I think that she has let go of some of those fears that first-time mothers have. Drake is swaddled with a blanket kind of over him, and he lays in the living room like that when Darlie is relaxing. Not only that, but Drake is, like I said, I think he's 7 to 8 months at this time. He's probably pulling up. He's pulling up on the glass table. He had fallen and hit his head.
Cover a little bit on that whole situation with Helena seeing the baby be swaddled up like that. I don't give that any credit, really. I mean, Helena may have misunderstood what she was seeing. I kind of agree with them here, but there's more to what Helena saw.
Again, this is normal for babies that are trying to walk. And then she also will testify that the baby fell out of his high chair that day. And again,
No, she's not testifying that the baby fell out of its high chair. She testified that he slid down in his chair and he was kind of caught up at the bottom part of the chair. And that Darlie did nothing about it.
Take her story with a grain of salt. And
sure, take her story with a grain of salt. Sure, you would. You'll take her story with a grain of salt. But your co-host will tell us that they got a lot of hang-up calls. You won't take Darlie's with a grain of salt. Darlie's the only person who's got a reason to lie.
Let me tell you a little story about when we were in Terralingua. It was me, my husband, my dad, and our 2-year-old. And my dad, I asked him the next morning, how did everything go? And he said, oh my gosh, I was at dinner and I turned my eye for a second to fill out the ticket, leave a tip and sign. And Mikey was rocking in his high chair to the point where he fell over. My dad, the next day, he's like, I freaked out and I signed the check and I got out of there really fast. And I told him, I said, Dad, don't feel bad. I mean, little.
Notice how she said, she began to say, I listen clearly to what people are saying. This is one of the intuitions that I've got. Think about this. She said, he goes, I turned my head for a second. Just like that, all right? Anything can happen in a second. Your kids do anything in a second, just a quick second. But she said, he was rocking in his chair to the point that he fell out of it. Did he do all that in 1 second, or was he rocking in the chair and somebody looked away from the child that was rocking in the chair and then the child fell? What you do is, if you see your child rocking in the high chair, you have them stop doing that because they'll fall. Not just a second glance away. No, you would know they were rocking in their chair.
Little boys are crazy, but they fall out of high chairs. They fall while they're trying to walk. It's kind of.
I tell you what, my son, Zach, my oldest, we had one of them Graco pack and play that were really popular back in the early 90s. And he could put his hands on it as a child on the rail and push and keep pushing. And at first we thought it was funny. We thought he was safe in there, He could push. We'd let him if he was pushing. We might tell him to stop, but he wasn't hurting anything. He pushed that thing completely over onto himself. Well, not on him, but he was inside of like a cage. So I'll give her credit. Kids do things. Helena's was worried that nobody was tending to Drake while he was in this high chair getting hung up. They were upstairs looking at Darlie's clothes or something.
Normal. So a lot of people take Helena's testimony and
no, not a lot of people. Just Darlie's family.
opposite direction, and they give her a lot of credit. However, being the mother of a boy, I kind of understand.
My opinion, Helena did not give any damaging testimony in the Darlie Routier case. Some of it she gave testimony wasn't even heard by the jurors. Got to go back and look at what was heard by the jurors.
And that a lot of this is fairly normal. Let's go on. After the boys eat lunch, they go outside to play. Barbara had arrived back to the house by herself around 5:15. She opens a beer, but her mother is ready to leave.
You notice how she says, oh, she opens a beer. Like, then she just jumped out of her car and just couldn't wait to get in there and get a beer. No, Darlie offered her a beer. Darlie offered her a beer to help her with her mental illness and her drug problem and her shadiness. They had a falling out, but Darlie offered her a beer. But they were falling out, right?
Lena also says Darlie was pacing, according to her, but in Darren's testimony, Darren says that Darlie was just putting all the laundry away that her and Helena had done that day.
There was still laundry out on the counters at the time of the murders, too.
Helena states Darlie leaves the vacuum between the wine rack and the pantry, and she testifies to where this vacuum is because this will be important later. Darlie had dinner cooking, she had a chicken soup, and so the two...
Chicken soup, I like how she keeps it to what it is. It was just a chicken soup, a fresh chicken soup. It's good. But Darlie Key says, and Darlie had just got done fixing a large dinner for her family. It's just chicken soup. See how they do things.
Women go ahead and leave, Barbara and her mom, Helena. Barbara says when they got in the car, they saw a black sports car on the street, and someone got in and sped off.
Nope. It wasn't somebody got in and sped off. They saw it going down the street.
And Helena, this is the police report that you heard Johnson talk about earlier. Darlie's sister Dana had ridden home with Darren from work that day, and they arrived back at the house around 5:30, kind of passing Barb and Helena as they go. So at this time, we have Dana, Darlie, Darren, and the three boys in the house, and they sit down to have a family dinner. After dinner, Darren goes out to fix the gate because it was dragging on the ground. So he just was kind of sawing the bottom off so that it wouldn't get stuck when the boys tried to come in.
Tried to sand it down, but, supporters will tell you that even though Darren worked on that gate, it was still hard to open for the police. I believe it was Detective or Officer Maine that said that the gate still scraped up against the ground.
And out of it. And a neighbor will testify that he sees Darren outside fixing the gate.
I don't remember that testimony. I'd like to see it. I don't recall it. But it's possible.
At this point, Darlie asks Darren to take Dana home around 9:30 or so. And remember...
Now, why did she ask Darren to take her home? Her reason was that she wasn't feeling well. Darren said, Darlie said, I asked her to take Dana home because I just wasn't feeling well. Now, Dana had been there for about 2 weeks. And she writes down that she wasn't feeling well. There's nowhere else in her testimony or anything of what's happening about that day where she says, I wasn't feeling well. There was nowhere. Dana says, and this is off the court record, Dana said she wanted to go home to be with her boyfriend. Darlie said she wanted Dana to go home because she wasn't feeling well. Somebody didn't want Dana there that night.
Remember, the Jag is in the shop, so Darren has to use Darlie's car. When he gets back to the home, he organizes for a garage sale they plan on having, and he goes in and he hides the stuff that he wants to keep that he doesn't want Darlie to know about. Also, at this point, we would really recommend going onto one of our social media places or just typing into Google the map of the house, because this becomes extremely important to the case. So it's a hot June in Texas. So Darren had raised one of the screened windows inside the garage about 6 to 8 inches. The screen is properly attached.
Dana opened that window to smoke, and she failed to close it. She says so herself.
Darren closed their garage door and locked it, but the backyard gate did not have a lock on it. The door between the garage and the laundry room was not locked, but the back sliding glass door, the front door, and all the windows except the one that Darren had cracked open are locked in the home. They had a security alarm that, however, they didn't have it set because it kept going off.
Must not have heard about that thing that happened just a few blocks away a couple weeks ago that her mom was talking about, where that guy slid in there and went into people's house like a snake, and went in. They must not have heard about that, right? Because they would have sure turned that alarm on.
And waking up the baby, so they weren't using it at the time. Their full-blooded Persian cat is in his kennel in the family room. So at this time, the Routiers are also breeding Persian cats, and so
That's correct. They were doing some breeding.
so this is the kennel that you'll see in photographs later.
The kennel, the cage, was right where Darlie's head would be at on the end of that couch. That's where the cage was. And the reason that this animal was in the cage in the first place was, one, because of the breeding, but two, because he was very aggressive. He would go after the kids. If you went near his cage, he'd bounce off the cage and all just hissing and growling at you, which is what he did when the police officers walked in there. He started beating himself up against the side of that cage and hissing and growling. But I guess the intruder, that was no big deal to the cat. Didn't alert when the intruder was there. It alerted when the police were there, though. Imagine that. Same thing with the dog.
But their full-blooded Persian cat is in his kennel in the family room, and Darlie and the boys are laying down there. And Damon is playing with a kitten, and they're all watching TV. When Darren comes inside, Drake is on Darlie's chest, so he takes the baby to feed him and put him to sleep in his crib upstairs. He also grabs a pillow and blanket from the primary bedroom that they sleep in, and he gives her...
Just two more things to compound what I was saying about Darlie putting things off on other people when it comes to the children. 2 times in this particular testimony, what they're speaking about: 1, Darren gave the bottle to the baby. 2, Darren took the baby upstairs. What was Darlie doing?
Pillow and blanket on the couch. They have a conversation, and then he heads to bed around 1:30.
Notice how she avoids the whole conversation.
a.m. An hour later, a 911 call is made.
So we want to just talk about the boys really quick. The oldest child, Devin Rush, was born in June 1989. He was described as a jokester, funny. He loved his dad and their matching jewelry. He loved water and could swim from birth, and he loved music, especially Gangster's Paradise, which he loved to sing along to. He loved his younger brothers. He was called...
Didn't hear where she says he loved to sing along to. These are the small details that I listen to in this case. The little small details. She said Devin liked to sing along to the song Gangster Paradise. But Darlie and Darren would tell you they didn't know what those words meant. They just danced to the beat. They didn't know the words about being lined in chalk. Even my mama doesn't know what's going on in the kitchen. Look at the lyrics of Gangster's Paradise, and you'll see exactly why Darlie had to say, oh, they didn't know the words to that. They just, they sang along. They liked the beat. But this supporter would tell you Devin liked to sing along to that. Little tiny thing. Mean a lot to me.
calm, sweet, polite, and smart. Devin had just finished first grade and gotten out of school for the summer when the crime occurred. The middle child, Damon Christian, was born in February of 1991. He was described as smart, but also more stubborn and moody. He also loved to swim, and he also loved his brothers. Drake was almost 8 months old when the crime happened and was described as a happy baby who also loved his siblings. I want to put a trigger warning in here because we're about to play a clip from a 911 call. And after that, we're going to describe the crime, which some listeners may find disturbing. So take care.
911, what is your emergency? Ma'am?
911 realizes they're...
This is the show of couth that we have regarding this case. 911 call being re-demonstrated like this is absolutely immoral to me.
There are 2 children at this point. An officer named Waddell responds to the call, but he does not radio into the 911 operator. He's only a minute or 2 from the scene.
Oh my God, my babies are dead.
How could she do that? How does anybody appreciate that? How does her family appreciate that? Darlie's family.
She's talking about Devin here, who took about 5 minutes to bleed out.
Damon, hold on.
She says her first child's been
I
stabbed.
saw them, Darren. Oh my God, they came in here, Darren. I don't know who it was. We gotta find out who it was.
You're going to have to slow down.
Oh my God, I'm
Calm
talking to
down.
my
Just talk
babies.
to me.
They're dying.
What's going on?
Somebody came in while I was sleeping. Me and my little boys were sleeping downstairs. Some man came in, stabbed me, stabbed my babies. I woke up. I was fine. He ran out through the garage, threw the knife down. My babies are dying. They're dead.
She's not doing it word for word.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. What? No, my husband, he just ran downstairs. He's helping me, but they're dying. Oh my God.
He's helping me, okay? This is another part of the 911 call that is very telling. Doris Trammell says to her, "Is there anyone in the house with you?" And she said, "No, my husband. He just came downstairs. He's helping me." What was Darlie doing before that? For Darren to need to help her. She wasn't helping with any of the kids. She was standing there on the fucking phone. She wanted to make it sound like she was doing something to help, and she wasn't. She was just standing there with her phone. Darren said he ran right past her. She was standing in the hallway. He's helping me. Helping you what? You're not doing shit.
God, they're dead.
Okay. How many little boys is it? Is it 2
There's
boys?
2 of them. There's 2 of them. Oh my God, who would do this? I feel really bad. I think I'm dying.
Darren said Darlie didn't even know she was cut.
Here, Darlie and Darren sound like they say the word Karen, maybe asking each other if one of them should run across the street to get their neighbor, who was a nurse. Darren will go get Karen after Officer Waddell is on the scene.
The reason you hear Darlie say in the 911 call is because she was standing in the foyer of the house and the front door was open. She was hollering out the door to Karen across the street. That's why she yelled Karen. That's why for a little bit of the time you can still hear Darren on the 911 call as Waddell's bringing them in there. It's because the phone was laying in the middle of the hallway. It was still on. You can hear that well.
Scene. Darlie says her husband just ran downstairs. Remember, it's only been about 2 minutes since the crime, and he's helping.
Helping what? She was just standing there.
We believe Darren is attempting CPR right now, but without luck. And Darlie says,
They're dying. They're dead. When are they going to be here? When are they going to be here?
Man,
All she's doing is standing there on the phone. But Darren's helping her. If he was actually helping her, he would have just stood there and held the phone for her because that's all the fuck she was doing.
and they're on their way.
I just got to sit here forever. Oh my God, who would do this? Who would do this?
Ma'am, how old are your boys?
7 and 5. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, he's dead.
It's pathetic that she does this.
Here 911 asks if their names are Darlie and Darren.
Yes, please hurry. God, they're taking forever.
Look for a rag.
The second officer, named Walling, is now on the scene.
They killed our babies.
Lay down.
No, he ran out. He ran out in the garage. I was sleeping.
911
Leading them away from children.
does not realize that officers Waddell and Walling are already on the scene, and Darlie's talking
I want to cut through this because I've already done a video on it and I find it retarded.
her home.
Throughout the prayer service. Devin had wanted nothing more in the world than to be 7 years old, and he asked Darlie every day if he was 7 yet. So his Aunt Dana suggested celebrating his birthday at
Here they go, placing the blame all on Dana.
the graveside. The family changed into more casual clothing and returned to the side of the grave to celebrate a 7-year-old's birthday. It was Dana's idea to use silly string.
There we go. It was Dana's idea to use silly. They always say that, and for years I've been hearing this. Well, it was Dana that brought it. It was Dana's idea. It was Dana. Let's place the blame on Dana because she brought it. It was all Dana's idea. But whose fucking finger was on that can, pressing that button? Darlie even says, "Are we allowed to do this?" You hear that in the video.
Since Devin loved it, and played Gangster's Paradise by Coolio, which was one of Devin's favorite songs to dance to.
Now they say to dance to. Earlier she said he loved singing it.
Routiers had called the media to film the birthday party, thinking it would help kids in the neighborhood feel safer. On this news footage, you can see Darlie spraying silly string and years old, and he asked Darlie every day if he was 7 yet. So his Aunt Dana suggested celebrating his birthday at the graveside. The family changed into more casual clothing and returned to the side of the grave to celebrate a 7-year-old's birthday. It was Dana's idea to use silly strings, since Devin loved it, and played Gangster's Paradise by Coolio, which was one of Devin's favorite songs to dance to.
I don't think they played Gangster's Paradise at the silly string party, but they did play it at the viewing, the funeral.
Routiers had called the media to film the birthday party.
Damn. The Routiers had called the media to film the birthday party. Now this is Danelle's BFF.
Thinking it would help kids in the neighborhood feel safer. On this,
Now remember, Danelle had already told us that they weren't invited. That Joe Munoz was not invited. Her BFF, I guess that she's all over Reddit talking about her mother's got Alzheimer's. Maybe she isn't the best one to be doing this podcast, right? But you see the differences. They were sent there. They were requested to be there. Then they'll tell you they were not requested to be there.
news footage, you can see Darlie spraying silly string and smacking gum. Mama Darlie had given Darlie gum because her mouth was dry, which was probably due to her crying or side effect of the high-dose antidepressants she'd been on since the murders. Barbara Jo...
Not on a high-dose antidepressant. She was on 0.25 milligrams of Xanax twice a day. That's a very low dose of Xanax. Footballs is what they call them.
Went to the birthday celebration, but not the prayer service. The prosecution states that she is Darlie's best friend, which is simply not true. Darlie, Darren, and Barbara had a bit of a falling out because Barbara thought she should be earning more hourly wage.
Now, here they go with this falling out shit, all right? Darren told Beja towards the end that the business wasn't making a whole lot of money. And he was able to pay his employees. And he said, well, you're the only one that got paid. There was no evidence of them arguing about a raise or anything like that. There's just none of it. This is just something they make up because they want you to think that since Beja told the truth that there was a falling out. There was not. Beja was at their house, their friend, the day of the murders and up to the silly string, up to the time she got arrested. You know when they had the falling out was after Beja got off the stand.
Will be sharing in the profits. And during testimony, Barbara states Darlie was crying fake tears, acting for the camera, and only holding.
And there's a lot of other people, like people that moved her back and forth from the courts, like Robert Hawley, a couple different jailers. They'd say that as soon as she moved out of that courtroom, it was all business. She went to boohoo to laughing and smiling. So we've heard this from other people. Not just Beja.
Pictures of the boys when she was being filmed. She said Darlie was putting on quite the show. Actually, Darlie's best friend is Melanie Waite, who will testify for the defense.
Well, where the fuck was Melanie Waite at during the Silly String party? Was she watching Drake or was Beja doing it?
In the trial.
Beja and Darlie were best friends. Melanie Waite was not one of her bridesmaids. Beja was.
4 days later, Darlie would be arrested on 2 counts of murder.
I don't know how much Darlie had left in her will to Melanie Waite, but she left Beja and Tammy, Beja's daughter, $10,000 because Melanie's her best friend. $10,000 apiece because Melanie's her best friend, right?
At approximately 10:20 p.m. this evening, investigators from the Rowlett Police Department arrested Darlie Routier. We believe that the white male suspect, described by Darlie Routier as the man that attacked her and murdered her children, never existed. We also believe that the wounds present on Darlie Routier were self-inflicted.
I swear I did not murder my children. I swear. So we will see you guys on the next episode. We hope you guys stay safe. Been spending most of my life living in a gangster's paradise.
Why don't you sing the rest of that song and tell us how appropriate it is for a 7-year-old's funeral?